Hey everyone, so I thought I would do a little bit of a different kind of video for you guys today. This is going to be just me talking and some rain sounds because I am currently in my car and I have some time to kill. So I thought I would give you guys my thoughts and opinions on the first 3 episodes of Pam and Tommy. This is the new show with Sebastian Stan and Lily James playing Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson, and it's talking about the scandal that came with their sex tape being leaked and kind of the very beginnings of their relationship so far. So it's on Hulu, and honestly, like, normally I probably wouldn't care too much to watch this if it was just like a documentary, but this whole like era of pop culture is very interesting to me, and also I think that if Sebastian Stan wasn't in it, I probably wouldn't feel the need to watch it right this instant. However, he is in it, so I want to watch it. So before I start giving you my kind of summary and thoughts, I wanted to just preface this by saying this show is not for kids. Like, not that anyone would think anything with these two, like Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee, would be for kids. But I know Sebastian Stan has a lot of younger fans, and like, honestly, this show is beyond even probably an R rating. Like, there's no way if this was a movie it would have made it to theaters, or if it did, like, it would be real close on that line of what they can and can't put in theaters. So I wanted to preface by saying that if you're someone who doesn't like movies or shows with a lot of graphic nudity, then, you know, this show is not for you. There's a lot of like full frontal nudity, not so much on Pam's end yet, but very much on Sebastian Stan's end, and it gets really weird, but we'll talk about that. So, episode 1, there's not much Pam in it at all. We are starting in July of 1995, after Pam and Tommy have been married, and Tommy Lee is renovating his home that Pam has since moved into. So we see the contractor, who's played by Seth Rogen, and this is our guy who ends up stealing the tape. So they're working construction, they're building this bed, and we can hear Pam and Tommy upstairs. And so he's kind of listening. Basically, you get the idea that their relationship was just a lot of sex, and they didn't care if like people were in the house or heard them. So the contractors are working, and basically Tommy Lee, Sebastian Stan, comes to check on the progress and changes his mind about what he wants for the bedroom layout. And the contractors are hesitant to do it, but they say okay because he says he'll pay, even though he already owes them a lot of money. So from there, we kind of see Tommy's anger issues because he gets a little pushback from the contractors, and he gets very upset that they are questioning if he's sure about the design, and he thinks that they're saying that he doesn't have the money or that he's not good for it, and kind of just asserting this whole "do you know who I am" status. So I also forgot to mention that right out of the gate, we actually see Pam in an interview with this Jay Leno. It's supposed to be Jay Leno, obviously it's not really him, but it's Lily James as Pam. He brings up the tape, and you can just tell she's very uncomfortable. She's trying to avoid the questions and not really talk about it, but he just keeps pressing on and on and on. And that obviously is after the tape has been leaked, so we go back in time from there. I thought it was important that I bring that up. So, yeah, basically, we get right from the jump that Tommy Lee is an asshole, and I think if you've watched Sebastian Stan's other roles, you know he plays these kind of jerk, not very good people characters very well, so he's definitely doing Tommy justice there. So yeah, obviously we see Tommy's not a good person. He's crazy, definitely has some issues anger wise, and we also see him with his gun collection that he's very proud of, likes to show people, and likes to threaten people with. So I think it's also important to note that both Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee were contacted about the show, and I guess Tommy Lee spoke to Sebastian Stan, and some of the scenes in this show are from things he talks about in his book. And then Pamela Anderson did not respond to the creators of the show and has since said that the show is like a cheap knockoff and she won't be watching it, and that she didn't really consent to it being made. So knowing that, when watching the show, I'm really picking it apart with how they portray Pam in certain situations, because I don't think it's necessarily fair that the show was able to be made without her consent. However, there are a lot of Hollywood loopholes that allow these things to happen, because they're never using actual footage of her. Even when they show like parts of what would be the tape, it was all shot with Lily James and Sebastian Stan, so she can't technically sue them because it's not her image being used. So I thought I'd throw that out there too. But yeah, so time goes on. Tommy keeps making changes to the construction plans, and the contractors tell him like he needs to pay them some of their money before they'll do any of the work. And then he just kind of comes in and says that they're trying to like rip him off, and essentially says, you're fired and I'm not paying you for anything because you've left my house in disarray. Even though he's the one that fired them, it's just the, you know, he says that that's the way it is. And essentially the contractors are scared of him, so they just kind of let him do it. So after he fires them, this is the catalyst to the tape being stolen. Seth Rogen's character decides that they are going to break in. They're going to take the safe with all of the guns and money in it. They don't know the tape is in there, and he does that. So he goes in by himself because his partner ends up backing out on him. He gets the money and then some, and how this man did not get caught, I have no idea. However, it was 1995, so I'm sure security systems were not great. But he steals the gun, the money. There's photos of Pam and Tommy Lee during their wedding in Mexico, and then we get to the part where they play part of the tape, but we don't see it. Basically, they realize that it's Pamela Anderson on the tape, and that's where the episode ends. So we see Lily James as Pam in this episode for about 5 minutes, and quite honestly, that's kind of a stretch. We see her sleeping in bed. We see her in the kitchen briefly, and then you know, in a couple shots on the tape that they show. Now, this is where I get like some certain shots I felt were kind of unnecessary. Like Lily James is in the bed and she's nude, but she's covered with a sheet where Tommy's not. And he's also laid out nude, like, on his stomach. And that, I guess, I was kind of like, okay. But then we have another shot where she drops some ice in the kitchen, and she's, like, bent down picking it up. And the contractor sees her, but she is just in, like, a big t-shirt with, like, some really skimpy underwear on. So he sees her, like, her whole butt is exposed. And there's a shot of that, like, really quickly. And I don't know, that didn't feel super important to me. But I'm assuming this is based on the account of the contractor. I don't know. That part just, it didn't feel super important for us to show her like that. But, you know, Hollywood is Hollywood. So then we're on episode 2. Episode 2, we're going back in time, and now we start to see Pam and Tommy meeting. So they meet at a club, and this is where I started feeling kind of iffy about the show, because to me, it just, her not consenting already gives me, like, this kind of icky feeling. But showing her, she's in the club with her friends and everything, and they're drinking and they're having a good time. And the way they meet is Tommy Lee basically finds out that Pam is in the club, and he leaves the girl that he's been making out with the whole night to go meet Pam. And he goes over, he lets himself into her VIP section, says absolutely nothing, just sits down next to her and licks the side of her face. And then everybody starts licking each other's face, and it's very strange. But then we kind of just see them partying. And afterwards, Pamela tells her friends, I'm not gonna date him, like, I'm just leaving, I'm going home, whatever. And of course Tommy follows her out, and you just see him being very pushy and very much, I'm sure he thought he was being charming, but just being a jackass. And, like, I would tase this dude if he did to me what he did to her. And he gets her number and calls her 17 times in less than 12 hours and ends up crashing the trip that she's going on the next day for work. So he shows up in Cancun while she is there doing some promo for the next season of Baywatch. So at this point, I kind of realized if this show came out in 2005 or even 2015, I think people would be looking at the show a lot differently. I think Tommy would have been more romanticized. Pam would have been, people would have just said it was all Pam's fault, and that it kind of would have been a Harley Joker situation. I just personally don't get that vibe this time. I think it's very much showing that Pam was someone who was looking for someone to love. She wanted to settle down and have kids, which she says in the show several times, and that she was looking for a good person to be with, and she thought she was getting that with Tommy Lee, and obviously that didn't happen, because he very much abused her. So one of Pam's friends, I love her in the whole show, she's like, you do not need to go out with him, you don't need to go see him, like, no, we're not doing this. And, of course she does, but she just is kind of warning Pam the whole time. So yeah, just more of Tommy just very much being pushy, and anytime there's a problem, he just kind of flies off the handles, not necessarily at her, but just at other people who are around them, while, they're trying to go to a club and he's not dressed right. So then he's like, well, we'll go to another club. So they follow him there. And then this is where, I think at this point they've known each other about 24 to 36 hours. But they're at this club, and Tommy gets drugs from someone. He gets ecstasy, And he goes over to Pam and asks her if she wants one, and she says, what is it? And he just says, it's love, and he puts it in her drink without her consenting. Like, she knows it's in there, but he didn't, like, really tell her what it was or anything like that. And at this point, she's so drunk that she could not consent to anything fully, to be honest. Like, she definitely could not be within her right mind. So yeah, I just think there's that. And then they go back to her room. They don't have sex during that time. They do, like, show them taking a bath together and then being naked in front of each other, but they don't have sex. So after this, the show kind of gets really weird, and I don't know why it was so important for them to put it in there, but I guess this is just part of the shock value part. And if you've heard rumors about the show, I'm here to confirm them. So basically, there is a puppet. It's not really a puppet, but I guess it's more of an animatronic thing. But you can go on TikTok, and as soon as you put in Pam and Tommy episode 2, you'll know what people are talking about. So yeah, I'm not gonna talk about it too much, but it's there, and I guess it's something that happened according to Tommy Lee, like in his book. He said that this conversation happened because he was still so high on ecstasy. So yeah, there is that. But throughout these whole 96 hours they're together in Mexico, Tommy keeps making Pam take ecstasy. They're on a lot of drugs. There's a lot of drinking. And I don't think anyone in this situation was probably sober for more than maybe 20 minutes. But then the following day they get married, and then they ride back, and on the plane they basically figured out that they have very little in common, and they don't really know where they're gonna live, because do they go back to Pam's or do they go live in Tommy's house? But ultimately they decide to live at Tommy's house in Malibu, where the renovations are taking place. And you kind of see that Tommy definitely wants to show Pam off, that at any chance he wants to tell people that he married Pamela Anderson, that she's the biggest star on TV, she's the hottest girl in Hollywood, look at me. So you can definitely tell he was kind of feeding his superiority complex, especially because at this time Motley Crue had broken up and they weren't doing a whole lot of music and stuff. So he was kind of, if we're talking about a list of celebrities, Pam was at the top and Tommy could still get into the party, but he wasn't going to get as much special treatment without Pam. So we see that they just have very different goals in life. She can't wait to become a mom. He's kind of, he's not against having kids, but that's definitely not a priority for him. And you just kind of see these moments that are really sweet between the two of them that are definitely going to come into play later. They kind of mask all the red flags. You can see how there were some rose-colored glasses going on in this whole situation. And then we go to episode 3. They're back in the office watching the tape. So we've jumped back forward in time to July. Or no, I think we're in September now of 1995. So they have decided that they're going to distribute the tape and try and make some money off of it. and we see them kind of debating about whether to do it or not. And we see that Pam was definitely not thought of the whole time. It was just meant as a big screw you to Tommy, and Pam was just kind of collateral damage to them. So, no adult film industry distributors will pick it up because they figured out pretty quickly that the tape was obtained illegally and they don't want to be sued. But through a really weird turn of events, the construction worker decides that they're going to sell it online because he buys a part for something online, and basically he puts it together that he could do the same thing with the tapes. So we kind of see how this started the whole internet boom of ordering things online and giving your credit card information to somebody and then them sending you things. You still had to call like a number and place your order, but you could do it pretty anonymously without getting in trouble. So we see Pam and Tommy are just kind of living together, and we're learning more about Pam, how she felt about herself as an actress, that she wasn't super confident in herself, but she wanted to be taken more seriously, but her big moments keep getting cut. And they drive home the point that they don't really know each other, because Tommy makes her this lavish like Greek feast because he's Greek, and he basically explains like that his mom is Greek and that he was born in Greece, and his dad met her because his dad was in the military, and you find out that his last name really isn't Lee, and Pam didn't know that that wasn't actually his last name. So just some moments like that where you're like, wow, they got married and they know nothing about each other. And then, there's a couple shots of like Pam's boobs and butt that I just didn't feel were necessary, but it happens in Hollywood still. And then you find out that the mafia had a little bit to do with the tape, that they kind of put up some of the money for the guys to start their operation. But you also see that Baywatch just really screwed Pam over. And I mean, you can see from season 1 to the last season that the bathing suits got more skimpy, and we saw a lot more of like Pam's backside and chest than anything else during some of those seasons. But we get this really cool scene of Pam talking about reinventing her career and what she's going to do next, and how she sees Jane Fonda as kind of the ultimate role model for her, because she was everything that Pam wanted. Like, she could be a sex symbol but an activist, and have a workout empire but also be taken seriously as an actor. And then after that, we see that Pam is pregnant, that she's gotten pregnant with her and Tommy's first child, and that's where the episode ends. So there's going to be, I think, at least 3 more episodes. And if you guys, enjoy listening to this, then I will talk about them as well. But this is just basically a recap of the first 3 episodes. So thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed my section of rain sounds, and I'll see you guys in the next one.